Welcome to MTN Outdoors.
Welcome everybody to this week's episode of MTN Outdoors, and happy Mother's Day. I'm once again your guide, Andy Curtis. And because today is a very special day, this will be a very special episode where we focus on all of the things that make the mothers in our lives so special, like how they help us grow and blossom as people. Very similar to how this Montana man grows food in his garden to help promote a healthy lifestyle. We'll also see how our wildland firefighters are using right now to prepare for what's really shaping up to be another busy fire season across the state. Very similar to how our mothers are always prepared to put out fires, both literally and figuratively, in our lives. And because bears are more active right now and you can't hear this enough, we're going to take today's episode to do a bit of a refresher on being bear aware when hiking or hunting out here in the Montana wilderness. Because trust me, nothing is worse than getting tangled up with an angry mama grizzly. But first, before we get to any of those stories, someone actually shot and killed a grizzly bear just outside of Yellowstone National Park, and authorities are still trying to find out who did it. MTN's David J. starts things off for us.
A wildlife photographer in Wyoming came across a bear that had been killed. Pictures have been posted on social media, and it's not clear exactly what happened, but it's brought up responses from those who work closely with animals. Photographer Amy Gerber was driving along the North Fork Highway between Cody and Yellowstone National Park when she spotted something that made her hit her brakes. A grizzly bear lying dead just a short distance off the road, surrounded by game wardens.
The game and fish guys looking around an area, I'd heard that a bear had been hit by a car. So I stopped, and when I spoke with them, the bear had not been hit by a car. They confirmed to me that the bear had been shot.
The Wyoming Game and Fish Department won't confirm the bear was shot, but confirm it and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service are investigating.
One photograph, it appeared that maybe the right paw was missing, but he said no, it was just folded under.
Gerber has been a biologist and a natural wildlife photographer for more than 30 years, and even knows some bears in and around Yellowstone by number or name.
I think I saw this bear a couple of days ago. It looks like the same bear, and I saw it in the willows along the river.
Anytime that we see an animal that dies of suspicious causes, especially gunshots, your mind immediately goes there, and it's a sad day when things like that happen to our wildlife.
Jeff Ewelt, Zoo Montana Executive Director, says poaching cases do not happen often, but when they do, it's a big concern, especially when it involves a federally protected animal under the Endangered Species Act.
It's devastating for us in the animal world to see something like this, to see a beautiful animal like that wasting away for no reason. It's just a sad day.
It's currently estimated there are fewer than 1,800 grizzly bears living in the lower 48. Another reason Gerber says crimes like this are just so heartbreaking.
We live in this amazing place. We live in this last stronghold for something like a grizzly bear in the lower 48 states. And I mean, I don't take that for granted one single day.
In Billings, David J., MTN News.
The sun is shining and the days are getting longer. That means many of us are gearing up to go out there. Before you do, though, let's not forget, others out there are also ready for spring to begin.
Montana is bear country, no matter where you look, especially where we live here in western Montana, the chance of encountering both black bears and grizzly bears is there.
Winter was long. Some wildlife didn't survive. That's how nature works.
And those animal carcasses are actually an important seasonal food source for bears. They eat those as they're coming out of hibernation, and it provides some really good forage for them.
That being said, plan ahead and use your head.
Carrying and knowing how to use bear spray, traveling in groups, making casual noise to make your presence known while you're recreating, and just being alert, being aware of your surroundings and watching for bear sign, all are really important and easy steps people can take to avoid negative encounters with bears. And then when you do carry bear spray, make sure you put it in a place where you can get to it, in a second's notice, because that's, typically when people have encounters with bears or they're being charged by a bear, it's a matter of seconds is what you have to be able to respond and deploy bear spray. So
Jacobson suggests also checking the expiration date and giving it a little test in a safe place. Little preparation now can go a long way to preventing a serious encounter later. Enjoying Montana's outdoors, Chet Lehman, MTN News.
Following last year's hunting season, Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks held their first mule deer hunter survey in about 12 years, where they tried to judge the hunting public's feeling about the Western wildlife icon. And you're gonna want to sit down for this because it turns out people really like hunting them. Now, the summary of research released by FWP shows the mailback surveys were sent out to about 5,000 randomly selected resident deer license holders here in Montana, and they saw about a 41% response rate. Of those respondents, about 62% said mule deer hunting was one of my most important or my most important activity here in Montana. And according to the survey, 85% of hunters think overall opportunities to hunt muleys are better than average. 64% of the respondents even rated the opportunity to hunt mature bucks as being better than average. That's up about 50% from the last time the survey was held in 2011. But the interest in hunting antlerless mules went down from 51% of hunters being interested or very interested in the last survey to 38% this time around. And no surprise after hearing that, about 2/3 of hunters responded that they support or strongly support hunting mule deer during the rut. Overall, on a scale of 1 to 5, 75% of those answering the survey rated muley management here in the Treasure State as satisfactory, or rating of a 3 or higher. And that brings us to this week's MTN Outdoors trivia question, which will be about both mule deer and mothers. So here we go. According to the Mule Deer Foundation, how much does a mule deer fawn weigh at birth? Is it 5 to 6 pounds, 6 to 7 pounds, or 7 to 8 pounds? Look at your own kid, pick them up, think about them as a deer to try to put yourselves in the hooves of a muley, ruminate on that notion for a little bit, maybe call your mom, and we'll have the answer when we come back.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
Welcome back, everybody, to a very special Mother's Day episode of MTN Outdoors. And before the break, I asked you a very special Mother's Day version of our MTN Outdoors trivia question. And just in case you missed it because you were showering your mother with Mother's Day gifts, here it is one more time. According to the Mule Deer Foundation, how much does a muley fawn weigh at birth? Is it A, 5 to 6 pounds, B, 6 to 7 pounds, or C, 7 to 8 pounds? Now, if you answered 5 to 6 pounds, you would be right. Now, the heavier the fawn, usually that means the healthier the fawn. After being bred, does begin a 7-month gestation period, and fawns are dropped in the late spring or summer. And those mothers typically give birth to 1 or 2 fawns, twins being born more likely to healthier does. So there you go, some information to wow the whole family with today. And if you really want to get the family talking at dinner, bring up wildfires. Specifically, what kind of training our wildland firefighters need to battle what is sure to be a very active summer. MTN's Kelsey Marison has more.
May is Wildfire Awareness Month, and here at Riverfront Park, Billings firefighters are getting some trainings in ahead of wildland fire season.
As the weather heats up, the Billings Fire Department is getting ready for its busy season.
There's guys working on in their incident command. There's also us putting our hands on the pump to get more familiar with it, us newer guys.
Austin Ray is coming up on his 2nd year as a Billings firefighter and has been looking forward to the training. From getting extra practice with chainsaws cutting down brush and trees, to learning how to pull water from a nearby source if needed.
Well, it's pretty fun. I mean, the fire department, we're always having fun, and especially getting out in this nice weather is a good time too.
It's also a way to gain experience from seasoned veterans like Dan Hoff.
Wildland fire is a big part of our department, and it's a big part of what we do.
Hoff is an engineer for the department and has been a firefighter here in Billings for more than 10 years. Now, you'll notice there's no actual fire here. It's where Hoff says it's good to have an imagination.
The guys have to play into it. We'll give them the card that shows kind of like what they're supposed to see and what they're supposed to be doing. So he is simulating that he is is putting out fire. He's trying to put out fire line there. So
Playing into their imagination and gaining necessary experience before the real deal.
We have a lot of guys that have had a lot of experience, so they pass it down to us and simulate these situations. So saying, hey, this is a real world application. These are situations where it's happened in real life. I think it's important to kind of look back, take your time, and address the situation appropriately.
In Billings, Kelsey Marison, MTN News.
Usually when we talk about a House or Senate bill, we're on the steps of the Capitol over in Helena. But today we're sticking around Bozeman to talk to people who this bill will impact, as well as a senator from Bozeman who voted against the bill. The bill in question all relates to wildfire mitigation in Montana.
It happens almost every year.
A fire at home and scoopers are away.
From the Bridger fire a couple years ago, we were getting calls. We were in Washington State, actually, based in Yakima at the time, fighting fires in central Washington. And as the Bridger fire picked up, there was a need for aerial assets. Of course, we're based in Bozeman, and we were not here to help respond. So with Canyon Ferry Lake nearby, it would have been a pretty easy scoop site and been able to hit that fire pretty hard. And there's probably a handful of those incidents every year where there are Montana fires that are burning, and the Montana assets are elsewhere at the time they're needed.
That's where House Bill 883 comes in.
We've been working on trying to get on fires faster.
Proposed by Lou Jones, a Republican representative from Conrad, House Bill 883. It proposes to change several aspects of how the state's fire fund is maintained and spent.
What it's doing is taking state tax revenue and earmarking it to ensure that it's specifically meant for wildland firefighting.
The money that goes into the account would go towards fire suppression, mitigation, restoration, and more. Representative Jones said that the thought behind this is to have assets ready in the state. The bill passed overwhelmingly during the committee and reading sessions, but did face opposition during Senate Finance and Claims. Senator Christopher Pope of Bozeman was one of the senators that voted against the bill, so I gave him a call to learn what his reasoning was from a financial perspective. And Pope explains that there are hundreds of House bills that flow through the committee, and that this bill would essentially put $140 million into the state's existing fire fund. Pope puts it as creating the fire fund into a savings account. Senator Pope also notes that the bill would inflate the fund by 40% when we've never needed the budget for a fire season that high. Pope says that fire mitigation is important, but he wants to be sure that taxpayer money goes where it's needed, such as health care or housing. For more resources like the bill text in its entirety, amendments, the voting breakdown, you can head over to our website. In Bozeman, Jane McDonald, MTN News.
And if you remember a few weeks back, the sky across much of Montana lit up like it was on fire thanks to a great Northern Lights show. Well, coming up in this next story, MTN Outdoors meteorologist Curtis Grevenant shows us how the next time that happens, you can make sure you catch it on camera.
The Northern Lights put on quite the show last Sunday. I took some of these pictures with my phone's camera, and some of these pictures were taken by you viewers with your phone. Maybe your pictures did not capture the beauty as well as you wanted. Well, if you are an Android phone user, be sure to have the camera set to Pro or Manual mode and activate the MF icon on your device. Turn off the flash. For the light sensitivity, it's best to set to 1600 and above. Set the white balance to around 3200, giving the image a more natural and slightly colder look. Using a long shutter speed is vital. If the aurora is bright, shutter speed should be between 1 and 5 seconds. If the lights are low and dim, set your shutter speed to 20 to 30 seconds. If you are an iPhone user, the iPhone 11 and newer models automatically have a night mode when low light is detected. Turn off that flash again. iPhones have a hidden menu which you can access by tapping the arrow at the top of the screen. Tap on the night mode icon and slide the exposure time to the 10-second maximum. In the same menu, tap the plus-minus icon to drop the exposure to a negative value like negative 0.07. And no matter what kind of phone you have, using a tripod to keep the phone absolutely still is essential for crystal clear pics. But don't spend all your time trying to get the perfect picture. Sit back and enjoy the show. And now you're a little more weather-wise.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
Welcome back, everybody, and thanks for spending some time with me for this week's episode of MTN Outdoors. And the weather is getting nicer and nicer all across the state, meaning more of you are getting out and having some outdoor adventures. But are you actually prepared? These next stories will tell you what you need to know to stay safe in our great outdoors.
It won't be long before these backpacks are filled with food and gear, ready for students to take them out on a trip where they'll learn not just survival skills, but skills that can apply to many parts of their lives.
I've got grit, I've got determination, I've got the fortitude to do this stuff.
Words from students that Josh Olson says he's heard while embarking in the backcountry. In 2015, Josh Olson co-founded the Montana Wilderness School, a nonprofit with the mission of getting young Montanans to connect with nature, each other, and themselves.
You know, there's sort of a mental health crisis for adolescents right now, and the number of students that come to us with these diagnoses or struggling with these mental health issues is just rapidly increasing, and they're able to get a break from some of that, and they're just with a bunch of students that, you know, their peers that, you know, are maybe experiencing the same thing, and they're able to talk to them about how they're dealing with their challenges with anxiety and depression.
Josh has seen hundreds of students come through the school, and he says that there are a few that stick out in his mind.
You know, students may be coming from a really challenging background. You know, they've got a hard life at home, or they come to MWS, they climb a mountain, and they're standing on the top of this mountain, and they're like, you know, telling their instructors like they never believe this back home.
One of those instructors is Kayla Wales, who started her MWS journey as a student and is now leading young Montanans on adventures through the school.
I think it's really important that maybe that California kid that just moved to Montana, that kid that lived in Belgrade their whole life, the kid who's living on the Crow Reservation, they all come together and they see that there's a million ways to connect to a place.
And with a million ways to connect, the school offers a variety of courses, from alpine backpacking, a Missouri River expedition, and more. The expeditions are multi-day, and they do come with an enrollment fee. But Josh Olson is proud to say that the school has never turned a student away due to financial restraints.
We work really hard to make sure that any student can come here that wants to come here. And so we have a program where they apply. If they seem like a good candidate, then we essentially will give them the financial aid and the scholarships to come. Yeah, and like I said, we've never turned a student away for financial reasons.
For more information about the Montana Wilderness School, you can check out our websites. In Bozeman, Jane McDonald, MTN News.
We've gotten our first true taste of warm weather for the year, and that has some people dusting off fishing gear, inflating the raft, or thinking of breaking out the paddleboard. But waters are still dangerously cold and have started to rise from spring runoff that has first responders urging caution.
If we get a sudden snow shower or rain shower, it's going to rise rapidly, so please don't camp right next to the river. Secondly, if you're fishing or out in the stream, remember that the streams are going to rise, especially this time of year.
River and stream gauges show that waters have been slowly rising, and while creeks like 10 Mile and Prickly Pear are not at flood stage, the temperature of the water combined with the stronger current could still be hazardous.
It's easy to fall into the water, but it's not easy to get out. You need to be conscious of how cold this water is. Be safety conscious, think about it, enjoy the streams, enjoy the lake, but it is cold. Don't forget.
If you are looking to get your boat in the water at one of the area lakes or reservoirs, Lewis and Clark County Sheriff Leo Dutton encourages you not to forget life vests or flotation devices.
I know it's uncomfortable, whether boating, camping, or walking along the stream. If it's fast water and you're going to dabble just trying to see how cold it is, and your balance isn't that good, and you're not wearing a life jacket, you're giving search and rescue something to do.
Dutton adds that if you plan on going out and being around water, make sure you let someone know about your plans, including how long you plan on being gone.
If no one knows that you went on a camping trip, or no one knows you went on a fishing trip, no one knows to look for you. Someone will maybe miss you eventually, but if we don't know where you were going, we don't know where to start to look. So always let someone know where you're going.
Reporting in Helena, Ryan Berg, MTN News.
And I know a lot of you are out in your gardens this weekend, and you're not alone. In this next story, MTN's Phil Van Pelt shows us how one Montana man is using the food he grows in his garden to help promote a healthier lifestyle.
May in Montana is a backyard gardener's dream. And for many, it's just a hobby. But for Wayne Burleson, it's a lifestyle. And it all starts with something that many often overlook.
People say, I don't have a green thumb. You make this kind of soil, your thumb's going to turn green.
Wayne Burleson is a Billings native, MSU grad, and self-proclaimed lover of all things agriculture, and it all started on his grandfather's ranch in Luther.
They talk about the plants, but I said, you know, if you can change the soil on a ranch, you make huge difference in that particular ranch.
And so, his soil perfecting process began.
Soils is the stomach of the world. You get the soils right, you get out of the way.
The recipe is a simple one. Dry grass or leaves, green grass, topsoil, manure, wood ash, kitchen waste, more grass, and then water.
Once you get the soils right and you put the seed in there and you know, you see that dark green color like that, you got a healthy plant. It's the soil.
He lays it all out in his book, Gardening for Life, No Money Required, and it certainly yields impressive results.
I had tomatoes from that bed way over there, go clear over to this bed here. I measured it 17 feet that thing grew.
But Wayne does more than just keep his family fed with his incredible veggie vitality. He also loves to give back. Wayne's traveled the world from South America to Africa, teaching people how to perfect their crops. And their success, he says, is music to his ears.
The one reason you're over there is to help people make money and feed their family healthy food.
Now he's bringing that philanthropic approach to the Magic City. He spent time teaching people at the Montana Rescue Mission how to produce their own gardens and hopefully get them back on their feet in the process.
This kind of food you can't buy in a grocery store. It's fresh, it's grown in this beautiful black soil that's nutrient dense. The vegetables become nutrient dense, full of health. When you eat it, you get healthy.
In Billings, Phil Van Pelt, MTN News.
Well, everybody, that should just about do it for us here this week at MTN Outdoors. Thank you, as always, for spending some time with me, especially here on Mother's Day. And remember, as you get outside with this warmer weather, send me a picture of you enjoying the great outdoors to andy.curtis@ktvh.com. I don't care what you're doing as long as it's outside and legal. You could be gardening, hiking, doing a little bird watching, getting the boat ready. As long as there's no roof over your head, send it my way to andy.curtis@ktvh.com, and you could see yourself at the end of a future episode. And with that, it's time for this week's MTN Outdoors Brag Board. And we're featuring some of the moms of MTN today, starting with our chief political reporter, Jonathan Ambarian's mom out here in the wild. Coming up next is our other John. John Riley sent in this video of his mom and wife cleaning a fish. Nice form, ladies. Thanks again, everybody, and remember, until next week, stay safe, and I'll see you out there.